Hello, I'm Jeff Hajek, and in this lesson, I will be talking to you about the variety of continuous improvement philosophies that are out there. So when I say continuous improvement, I'm really talking about a generic umbrella term that encompasses pretty much any way a business wants to operate to make their processes better or their operations better, or just anything they want to do to improve. To me, that falls under this generic continuous improvement umbrella. But, if you kind of go and do some research on it, what you will find is that there are many, many flavors of continuous improvement. And if you do any research on my company, you'll find that I have a very heavy influence from the early days from lean. Now, one of the things that I do is I call my company, Vilaction Continuous Improvement, because I do want to create this company that covers the broad spectrum of how to help other companies get better. Lean is a very specific subset of all of those, this big umbrella. So when I talk about it from my company's perspective, I generally use lean and continuous improvement interchangeably, though it's not absolutely correct. And my philosophy on that is that lean is considered by many to be a set of tools, but one of the principles of lean that is taught is, really to use any tool that makes things get better. So that basically opens up the door to lean being almost virtually identical to continuous improvement. So, well, it's not entirely accurate. I do use them interchangeably a lot. And part of that is also because I'm a business and, some people think of it as lean, some people think of it as continuous improvement. So I want to be able to serve people whichever way they approach it. So lean is by far the most popular of the continuous improvement philosophies, specifically in manufacturing. But in general, it has become more and more popular. So I try to accommodate people. But kind of thinking about that, lean has really expanded. So it started out as lean manufacturing, and it became more truncated to just lean because there was a realization that lean goes into all of the administrative side of the business too. So if you're in marketing, or if you're in finance, or if you're in engineering or materials, those are all part of the lean operation, but they're not really manufacturing. So even though it's a manufacturing company, it's hard to say an engineer is a manufacturing person. You might support it, but you work in an office and you're not really down there on the shop floor. So to say you're in lean manufacturing when you're talking about how to do an engineering change request coming up, it's a little bit of a stretch. So we've come up, not we personally, but the whole general group of people practicing lean came up with the lean office. And a lot of people were already practicing the lean office, just didn't have the specific set of tools developed to support the lean office as it's labeled now. And then you get lean hospitals, and you get lean government, and lean education, and basically any industry that you want, you can put lean in front of it and create a subset of tools that are specific. But that's what you would do anyway if you're internal to it. So really this is just packaging up things to share that people would do anyway as part of their lean operation. So the a little bit of history is lean came over to the U.S. from Japan, primarily from Toyota. And Toyota is, let me get to that in a second. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is a Toyota production system. But right now, for lean, it's generally thought of as manufacturing. And like I said, it's been changing. It's generally thought of as in reducing waste, or some people kind of have this idea of improving flow. But it's really, like I said, it's much more of a big picture thing. So even though it's traditionally thought of as adding value through streamlining the process, improving flow, reducing waste, it goes further than that. And one of the reasons why is all the steps that you would take to, say, reduce waste and improve the streamlining through the process. Those are the same things that would improve your lead time. It would improve the quality of the product. If you have a problem putting things together, it slows the pace down. It adds waste. So all these things come together in the same basic set of tools you get an impact in a lot of different metrics. So back to what I was saying earlier, Toyota. So Toyota, or the Toyota production, let me try again. The Toyota production system was really the original place that lean came from. So when I talk about lean, I'm talking mostly from the American perspective because, that's where I live and that's where I was introduced to it. But it really came from Japan and a variety of reasons of how it got started over there. But in the 80s and 90s, it started to show up in the US. So when it showed up, there was a big push to adopt it. But there's also Toyota is really open with their adoption of lean and how they do it and why they do it and all that sort of thing. So if you want to learn about lean, Toyota is an open book. They give you all kinds of information about it. And there's a lot of reasons why. One of the things is they have a general sense that it's better if everybody does better. The world gets better. But also they know it's hard to copy. So even if people are trying to play catch up with them, they're always going to be a couple steps ahead because they've got it deeply ingrained already. And the whole principle of continuous improvement is part of how the company operates. So they know even if they share what they do and how they do it, it's really, really difficult to copy that. So they're very open with it. One of the things about their production system is that they are highly people-based and they have a lot of principles that guide it. So that's kind of the Toyota production system. That's the flavor of lean that most people like to copy. Now, another philosophy is Six Sigma. And Six Sigma is very unique in that it is really it's trademarked, basically. So when you talk about lean, that term is kind of out in the open. Nobody owns the term lean. And there's people who kind of coined it. But there's no restriction on saying I'm a lean company. Now, Six Sigma is different. Six Sigma is trademarked, but it's not enforced. So everybody uses Six Sigma. And I've never heard of a case where Motorola came out and I don't know the trademark law, but I know if you don't enforce a trademark over time, you lose the ownership of it. I don't know what the status is with Motorola's, but I do know that it was originally a trademark term, and that makes it kind of unique. But the gist of Six Sigma is that it's highly technical. There's a lot of highly mathematical statistics tools that are put into this thing called DMAIC framework, and it's define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And that is a problem-solving methodology that it kind of mirrors things like 8D or PDCA in terms of the way you approach a problem. But it's basically taking all these technical tools, putting them into this framework, and that's Six Sigma. So I probably should talk about what Six Sigma actually means. So Sigma is for standard deviation. It's a designation for standard deviation, and it's a measure of the spread of a set of values. So when you're looking at a distribution, it has a curve will have a normal distribution curve will have a spread to it, and that spread is measured by standard deviation. And the whole idea is you want to be able to get to where you can fit all of your Six Sigmas of the spread of your output should fit within your process, your spec. So the whole idea is when you set a spec, you should be able to get 6 sigmas worth of spread inside of that spec. And that's basically what it is. When they say 6 sigma, they're talking about, the very small minutia of the tails of your normal distribution that rides outside of your specs. So basically it's saying extremely, extremely, extremely high quality. That's what 6 sigma means. Now, Lean Six Sigma is the natural combination of Lean and Six Sigma. And it started kind of as a marketing approach. So a couple of people went out there and said, hey, we're going to put this together, bundle it up, and sell it as a new system. But the truth is that people using Six Sigma already had the access to lean tools as problem-solving methods. So even though the structure was different, when they came across a issue, they might turn to Poka-yoke. So they actually found themselves using the tools and the systems within Lean and vice versa. When Lean ran into a problem, they would not hesitate to grab anything that works, and a lot of Six Sigma tools would work. So the gist of it is that people who focus on Lean tend to be more frontline, just do it oriented, and people who focus on Six Sigma tend to be more engineering, highly technical people driving the change, but there's overlap already. So there's not like a restriction to do it. So the big issue with Six Sigma in my mind, or Lean Six Sigma in my mind, is that, and even Six Sigma, I guess, to some degree, is that when people try to combine them, what they often do is they jump ahead and they kind of jump the gun. So all the basic stuff that you can accomplish with just the very traditional, standard, easy to implement lean solutions, you can get that all done and take away the need to do all this highly technical stuff. So if you do a lot of the, setup reduction and poke yolks and standard work and, get flexible in your job so people aren't rushing all the time, flexible workforce, so you can move people around to match the demand. All those things reduce the variation and they reduce that spread without having to go to all the highly technical tools. So if you are having problems and you break out Six Sigma first, you're going to have to do a lot of the same things anyway to resolve the problems. But you also have, there's a kind of mystique around Six Sigma that most people feel like it's kind of not something that's accessible to them. So Lean Six Sigma, I think, it's kind of already done, and a lot of it is primarily marketing. So the time I'd say the caveat to that is when you're in phase 6 of the system and you're really cruising along and you got great momentum, it's a good time to start really introducing more of the Six Sigma tools to your general workforce and trying to get more and more people involved with it, because at that point, when you've exhausted a lot of the low-hanging fruit that Lean can take on, Six Sigma can go further. Just-in-time manufacturing, it basically it overlaps almost completely within the Lean philosophy. So just-in-time, it focuses on material flow and reducing excess inventory. So it's really a very manufacturing focused, is very focused on a specific piece of how an operation runs. And it has a lot of, to do that, you have to implement a lot of the other things that Lean advocates for. So if you want to be able to reduce your inventory, you have to have really good quality, or else you run out of parts. Because if you want to get down to using, having only 10 in stock and whatever the number is for your day, and you have lower quantities, if you have problems with quality, those lower quantities are going to impact you more. But like I said, this is a big impact with Lean, big overlap with Lean. So if you're doing Lean effectively, you are doing JIT also, but not the converse is not true. If you're doing just in time, you may not be touching all of the different things that Lean says. Agile manufacturing is something that was introduced, and it was really focused on being highly responsive to customers. This to me is a lot of marketing. It was kind of a packaging up of a lot of Lean principles with some other stuff thrown in, but it had a lot of overlap with Lean. So people looked at it, said, hey, this is kind of a cool concept, and then they started diving into it and realized, hey, this is like a tricked out version of Lean, but Lean you can trick out anyway. So it never really caught on, and a couple of them were like that. Theory of constraints is a little different though. This was a lot of people who get introduced to Lean start with the book The Goal. And The Goal, it wasn't a Lean book, it was a book about the theory of constraints. And that was put out by, and I hate saying names wrong, so I looked it up, and it's Dr. Eliyahu, and that's how you pronounce it. I think I got that right, Goldratt. So he is the author of The Goal, but he's also, at the time, this is kind of back in the 80s and 90s, he was really a sought-after consultant because he kind of got this principle that systems versus localized thinking. So you can make all the improvements you want on local processes, but it won't increase your throughput if you have a constraint in your system. So steps A, B, C, D, if C is your slowest one, that's going to dictate the pace of your operation. So he came up with this theory, this tool called drum buffer rope, and he explains it in the context of a father who was a scouting leader, and one of the kids was slow, and he started using a drum to set the pace, the tempo, so the kids in front wouldn't get too far ahead. And the buffer was how the kids were lined up, and then the rope was to kind of keep them all together. They all hang onto a rope, and it really set the pace so kids weren't left behind. So it's a way of stabilizing the walking, but it also works in operations. Drum is your tack time. Buffer is the buffer to keep your constraint from falling behind. If you can never catch up where the constraint is, the theory. So you put a little buffer of inventory there. So if there's ever a problem with an upstream process, you'll never run out of parts at the constraint. So that's kind of the theory behind this. And then the rope is pull. So these are all basically lean things that overlap a lot. So he had a very specific way of looking at it, but a lot of it's the same principles as lean. Quality circles was another kind of flash in the pan, very, very popular in the 90s and early 2000s, and it kind of faded off. But it was small teams would form to attack problems, and it was not exactly Kaizen-like. Kaizen is a 1 week, very intensive project. Quality circles are more of an ongoing team until the problem was solved. They used a lot more math and statistical tools and a lot of quality management tools to attack problems. But it's an older philosophy, and it's more like a tool. I probably shouldn't say philosophy. This is more of a tool to fit into your management system. So increasingly uncommon. One of the little side notes of this is that it was first introduced by Deming. So he saw evidence of this being used in Japan when he went over there and was helping rebuild after World War II. So he learned a lot about quality circles there and kind of brought it back. So there's a pedigree that goes through Deming. And total quality management is an extension of quality circles, but it was more of a way of approaching your operation from a quality perspective. A lot of quality tools, lots of overlap with other systems, lots of math involved in this one. And quality managers use a lot of these tools anyway. And nowadays, you probably have a lot of the total quality management stuff built into your management systems, but it's not labeled the same way anymore. So this has kind of fallen off like some of the other ones, that it was popular for a while. People kind of pick and choose what they keep from it in different philosophies. So Lean and Six Sigma really are the big ones. Six Sigma's fading out too, but Lean and then a general continuous improvement approach, they really pick and grab a lot of things that come in here. So you'll see a lot of the tools from TQM show up in modern Lean information. Business process reengineering. This was, it originated kind of in the 1990s as a more branded type of concept. And it started out, the biggest one is Reengineering the Corporation, is a book by Michael Hammer and James Champy. And I think it was 1993. I might get the date wrong on that one, but Reengineering the Corporation kind of led to this whole business process reengineering, or BPR, as a methodology or as a philosophy of improvement. So this has kind of faded again, like a lot of the other ones. It faded as a branded approach, but the basic premise is really sound. As you look at your core processes and you improve your core processes, you re-engineer them. So basically you keep attacking your core processes. So this really is continuous improvement, but just a very specific form of it. So the final thought is, as I talked about this, there is a lot of these philosophies that kind of originated in the late 80s or early 90s and kind of lasted into the early 2000s as very popular tools, and then they kind of faded out. And today, when you think about continuous improvement, it's either like I do, where it's a very generic brand, continuous improvement, or Lean still sticks around a lot. But you get all these tools, they come out, they get marketed, they get picked up by the other philosophies, and the ones with staying power come or stick around. And people remember these tools, these systems, but they slowly fade from common usage. Some of them fade out very quickly, some take a longer time to kind of diminish. But as a rule, it doesn't really matter which philosophy you have. You're just going to create your own philosophy. So I try to combine as many of these pieces of each of these philosophies as I can into, I don't try to combine as many as I can. I try to take the ones that I like and that I think are effective and that I've seen work and put them into my continuous improvement development system and integrate them into the principles that I use and the methods and the phases. All this comes, a lot of it is basically a combination of different tools and things I found along the way, and put it into a structure that I think really works well for getting people highly developed as a business management system, getting the companies to use a highly developed business management system, and that system in turn creates a really, really well-refined, powerful continuous improvement culture that also drives your business management system. So it creates its own fuel, basically. So that's the continuous improvement philosophies and how I put them into the SID system. Thanks for listening.